This is a light sensor that the Pi lagtester Pro uses to measure input lag. When measuring input lag, you could just hold this up to the screen and take individual measurements, as the measurements only take about a second. However, that's a real pain if you want to take a lot of measurements, which is useful if the monitor or display shows some evidence of drifting lag. And it's also a pain if you want to measure across a lot of different modes. So what I generally suggest is to tape these sensors onto the screen. But in this day and age of tiny bezels, that approach doesn't work that well. For instance, look at this monitor. Aside from this bezel along here on the bottom, it doesn't really have any bezel, and so there's not really a good place to tape the sensor. I have actually multiple times gotten taped directly on the LCD element itself, and so far it's never damaged it, but I wouldn't recommend it. So here I'm demonstrating an alternate approach using this selfie cam stick. The sensor is just being taped to the selfie cam, and then I put it up against the region that I want to test. Right now we're running through a script that automatically checks every single mode that the monitor reports as supporting and takes 20 measurements and averages them. In this monitor, 20 measurements is overkill. It doesn't vary much more than about 1/10 of a millisecond between frames, but for some monitors that kind of averaging is worthwhile. So if you were a glutton for punishment, you could just hold the sensor up against the flashing bar that you want to measure. And that would work, but it's actually probably a bad idea, even if you are a glutton for punishment. And the reason is that as you move the sensor up and down on the screen, you're going to get different lag numbers. And that's because it takes time to draw from the top of the screen to the bottom. On a 60 Hz display, it takes about 16 milliseconds. So you're going to get the best lag values, the shortest that is, if you measure from the very top of the screen. And if you want to find out how long it's taking the monitor to draw from the top to the bottom, some monitors actually draw twice as fast as the refresh rate, or plasma displays actually draw instantaneously. You need to measure carefully from both the top bar and the bottom bar. So it's a good idea to have some kind of setup, such as this one, to be able to measure consistently from the exact same location on the screen. For most displays, you don't need anything fancy like this. Like I say, I've gotten a lot of mileage out of some painter's tape, but a cheap selfie stick like this one is pretty helpful. The other thing to keep in mind is if you don't need to measure from multiple locations, you could just set the sensor on a book or something like that and just stick it right here, and that would be plenty good. It doesn't matter where it is in the horizontal direction. These lines are all filled in basically instantaneously. It's the vertical direction that the lag changes in. So you can very easily get your sensor placed at the bottom of the screen. It's only when you're doing the top of the screen that you need something fancy like this. The other thing to keep in mind is there are a few displays, a few stupid displays if you ask me, that actually scan from bottom to top. So it is really worth at least taking a few spot checks to make sure that the lag is increasing as you go from the top of the screen to the bottom. Alrighty. Hopefully this will help those of you who are trying to figure out what to do with your sensor and where to place it.